at the end of the session. And why don't we go ahead and get started? Thank you all for joining our session today. I really appreciate those who have come on board, understanding that for many of you, this may be a holiday or a day off, a President's Day. So happy President's Day to you, and I greatly appreciate you joining our session. Really, the focus today is on how service providers, MSPs, CISOs, and the likes can use SureShield and SureAssess to help manage and gain new clients. My name is Tom Leahy. I am the head of sales and business development with SureShield. We are, sorry, someone is not muted. I'm Tom Leahy. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales and Business Development with SureShield. We are a security compliance provider focused in a number of verticals, but primarily healthcare, finance, and government defense contracting. And providers use our solutions to help deliver the services that they provide to their clientele. We will talk today a little bit about some of the current security trends that are out there in the marketplace, obviously the opportunities that come with that, the compliance drivers, and what that means in terms of market opportunity. Many of you may be involved in servicing in the DoD or Department of Defense federal marketplace, and you know there's a lot of new activity that is taking place there and demands for services. We'll talk just briefly about a couple of updates that came just last week from the Department of Defense. And as many of you may know, there will be another CMMC town hall meeting tomorrow afternoon to update where they're at with this as well. We'll talk a little bit about your roles as service providers, what some of those challenges can be, and then how you can leverage technology like ours to help manage your services and deliver services. And we'll show how PartnerShield can help you in doing that. We'll provide a brief little product demo and overview. We'll take questions. And then at the end of the session, for those of you who are interested in actually perhaps trialing particular tools or getting an understanding of how the platform works, you will have the opportunity to raise your hand and indicate you would like to be able to get set up to trial these solutions out as well. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Obviously, there's not a day that goes by that we don't see new issues happening with hacks and ransomware attacks and cyber threats that continue to be on the increase, both from bad players, criminals, and hostile nations. And as such, it's drawn a lot of new attention to executives at any company understanding the need to improve their cyber hygiene. And of course, combined with that are all the compliance requirements that go around that as well. So as they've said, the cost of cybercrime is over $6 trillion annually in terms of the damages and the costs that are coming with that. They're expecting that compliance-related services and needs will reach close to 38 billion by the end of 2021. So now we're into 2022. It's probably even higher than that. And then compliance-driven security purchases by folks who need this is going to increase by over 25% in the next 5 years. And of course, there's many new government compliance mandates. We'll touch on a couple of those that are familiar around CMMC and the John McCain Act. And there's an expectation, that these will continue to grow at a compound rate over the next 5 years. So a lot of opportunity out there for folks and needs of companies to have providers who can help them with these issues. On top of that, there's a lot of compliance drivers, whether it's 889B, PCI, HIPAA, NIST, CMMC, ISO. There is the need for continuous risk assessments and self-assessments. And so again, drivers for organizations that are helping companies become compliant, with needs for those types of services. So what are some of the opportunities for providers like yourself today? Obviously, there's a growing security breach and hacks that are going on and taking place. And so there's significant needs to work with companies that can help other companies improve their cyber posture. The compliance requirements and regs and audits will continue to increase. Particularly, we know, and as we'll get into the next slide, some of the latest information out of the DoD as it relates to CMMC has even indicated there will be more need for help in services. And of course, there's a shortage of talent, which leads to the need for increased security offerings from companies that can step in and help organizations with that. And more companies are moving from what you might call passive protection to active detection, where they can spot issues more proactively and mitigate those issues. And leveraging different types of services like CIS and the CISO to get information on the most latest exploits that have come out and how to actually attack them. And there is really not a lot of good solutions that are comprehensive in nature that can be brought together for service providers like yourself to make it easier to manage multiple different services, as well as integrating offerings that may work together. There are compliance issues that can be identified by security-related scanning and the likes. So there continues to be a gap in the marketplace for kind of what I would call multi-purpose, comprehensive solutions in the market here today. Just wanted to touch on briefly what what this opportunity means, and this is just as it relates to the Department of Defense marketplace. It may be a little more than $15 billion in market opportunity within things that are needed in the Department of Defense as it relates to compliance related services that need to be done. And then of course, this is not just for government. Healthcare has very significant needs, as does the finance market. And with those are the needs for things like compliance assessment services and reporting, scanning and vulnerability management, where you can go in and take a look at a customer's environment, identify where they have vulnerabilities, and then help them remediate those and provide services to help with that as well. And all of these, of course, have the need for additional, what you would call critical data identification and protection services as well. If it's healthcare related, the need to make sure that any PHI data is properly protected. In the case of the government and DoD, you have your CUI data that needs, a lot of the primary focus around that is the proper protection of that critical data and making sure it does not get in the hands of the wrong individuals. So services that can help identify that data and then put layers of protection on, even further layers of protection on top of that. Additionally, many of you may also now be familiar with the Mccain Act, which was passed to prevent any entity that works with any type of federal contract, whether that be across any governmental agency. If you are even touching anything related to a contract with, whether it be the Department of Defense, Department of Treasury, any governmental institution, you are forbidden from using certain telecommunication equipment. And those are providers right now focused around Chinese national companies, where technologies that they have developed have been used for spying, for stealing, and now the government is making sure that nobody is working with any of those types of technologies. Now, there's a lot of them, so identifying where they are and where they may be in a client's environment can be difficult, and we have solutions and there's services that can be offered to help people make sure they're compliant with that particular act as well. And then, of course, you have the vendors in that ecosystem as well that need to be properly managed. So huge opportunities for a variety of different services that can be provided. I wanted to just touch briefly around some specifics around the CMMC process that many of you are familiar with. The changes that we know were made recently in November in terms of going from 5 to 3 levels and leveraging primarily the NIST 800 framework. But last week there was a town hall by the DoD where they were giving some more specifics on a couple of things related to who's going to need to go through this process and how they're going to need to go about that. And some of those seem to have changed recently. So they're estimating right now that about 140,000 providers in the DIB will need to do a level 1 assessment. And as you recall, under the level 1, those are what we might call your basic cyber hygiene. There's 17 different controls that need to be managed in that process. And for those who qualify as only a level 1 in terms of the services that they provide to the government or the under contract, there's about 140,000 that will need to go through that process. And that process will be a self-assessment that will be submitted. And that self-assessment will obviously require executive sign-off on those, where they're going to tighten the belt more to make sure that if you are submitting an assessment or an attestment that you're complying, you're going to be liable from a False Claims Act for that information as well, being true and valid and having the proper supporting documentation to back up your assessment score. What did change is it had at least suggested that there will be about 80,000 that will be at a level 2. And at a level 2, that means that you are handling some form of CUI. They had originally said that there would be kind of 2 different methodologies for those that had CUI data. Some that are deemed not as critical, we're going to be able to go through a self-assessment process as well, while others would need to go through a third-party, review by the C3PAOs, an audit by C3PAOs who will validate your compliance and then submit that to the government to give you that seal of approval. Under the last presentation that was done, they are suggesting that the majority of those that fall into level 2 are going to need to go through a C3PAO audit. There will be a lot less that will be able to go through a self-assessment process. So that means that they're going to need assistance in getting ready and getting, pre-ready to make sure that when that audit is going to take place, you're ready to pass that audit. So it's certainly on one end increasing the needs for the C3PAOs. There was some questions about were the numbers of those that would have to go through this process going to be reduced. They most likely will be, but not to the extent that maybe was originally thought. So, and of course, they will continue to enforce, as they do now, the NIST 800-171 requirements until everything gets settled in terms of the new rule with CMMC. So, and knowing that the new CMMC guidelines are really following the NIST 800-171 requirements, it's to you and your customers' benefit to make sure that those processes are in place. They also indicated that they were finalizing the POAM requirements. At one point, it looked like you may not even be able to utilize a POAM. Now they do expect that there will be certain controls that they will allow to go on the POAM that will be reduced in numbers. So there will be certain requirements that you're going to have to meet independent before you even begin that process. And they will allow it, but they're going to limited in number of items that can go on the POAM And then they also indicated there will be a definitive timeline of no more than 180 days from remediating those issues to be in compliance. So they reiterated a lot of things that have happened in some of the CMMC town halls, which are saying, get started on your assessments, and that proper documentation around those is going to be required. And it also indicated that all DIBs should be getting the processes in place to do vulnerability assessments and scans, and they were offering some tools that might be useful to companies to do that. But it's something that needs to be done, and needs to be done relatively soon, so you can start in on the remediation processes. So the roles of the RPOs and RPs as it relates to CMMC, and really as MSP or security providers in helping, is one, of course, to help these companies that want to go through this process get ready for certification, to conduct assessments for those, to identify those compliance gaps that need to be closed, whether they're going to be self-assessments or third-party audits. And a key component of that is beginning to look at vulnerabilities and identifying where there's security holes that can be that need to be addressed and attacked. Obviously, to help organizations identify where their CUI is, how that's classified, and putting good protections on that, and helping with assuring compliance with 889B rules, which will be a subset of the overall CMMC requirements. And as a service provider, to provide ongoing consulting and support services. And today, to help them meet the current NIST requirements. So what are some of the challenges, obviously, related to that? Certainly, as more of these at least in the DIB, begin to have to go through this process, to take on more clients are going to need, call for the need for effective service tools and scaling tools that can help you scale your business. They need to be repeatable and efficient, so that you can conduct the required service, that you'll have an easy way to collaborate with your customers, and being able to distribute work, whether that's within your own organization or collaboratively with the companies that you're assisting. You'll want to have tools that can help manage all your clients and the services that you are delivering in a more centralized manner, so that you can easily reach out and see how your different clients are performing and what are the certain tasks and things that need to be done for them. And I obviously want to do this without having to significantly increase your labor pool. And then having good, repeatable, and helpful reports and tools that you can work with your clients with to help them close gaps. So how can you leverage technology delivered by companies like ours? And as we mentioned, we are a security compliance platform. So within that, we have tools that can help do any type of compliance audit. We have gone through the process of already updating our solution to meet the new CMMC level 1, level 2, and level 3 requirements. So we have solutions that you can utilize to help conduct your assessments and crosswalk that information, so that you are taking care and helping your clients with the needs they have today, and preparing them for what they're going to need to have when this new rule is finalized as well for CMMC. You can leverage tools like ours to help do vulnerability scans. We've provided a very simple and easy way for you to leverage that. I believe we check close to 200,000 or more different types of vulnerabilities. And we've also tied this into things like the CISA exploit reports, so that those are being updated, and you can look at even those particular exploits very easily and help your customers remediate that process. We also have software that can be used to leverage and identify CUI data within your environment or within your customer's environment. So it will reach out on the endpoints and find where CUI may be sitting so that someone can more comprehensively take a look at that and manage that oversight, and then put the proper protections on that data as well to limit its movement or restrict its movement. And that becomes quite beneficial to help meet those particular requirements. And then lastly, we have software that can actually help you manage the whole 889B compliance requirements in a more automated fashion. And we do that under the auspices of 4 different products that sit on this platform that you can leverage. ComplyShield, as we mentioned, and we'll show you this in a brief demo, can help manage any type of compliance-related frameworks. We actually integrate that and interface that with our security scanning tools, where we can identify certain compliance requirements through a scan that can trigger whether you're in compliance or not in compliance with certain controls related to those. We have a tool called HackShield for identifying CUI data, and then a tool called IntegrityShield for doing 889B oversight. And we'll talk briefly within here also how you can leverage these from a trial perspective with clients to help them better understand where problems may exist, and using those as sales, enabling tools for your organization to render and generate more services for you and the clients that you're servicing. So how can that, just briefly, how can those tools be used to leverage your service efforts? We mentioned you can use our tool to do a discovery scan to identify key vulnerabilities that may exist in that client's environment, and then presenting that to them to show them where their problems are and justifying the need to invest in remediation services and processes to regularly manage that process. We have a dark web scanning tool that can help them identify, you can use to help an organization understand where they may have compromised credentials. And then of course, utilizing that for ongoing services to help remediate and eliminate those problems. Our endpoint scanning tool, that's the HackShield tool, can be used to do an initial scan on a customer's environment and help them understand that, one, they have CUI data or PHI data or whatever that type of data is that's important, and really helping giving them good visibility as to where that data is sitting and what degrees of proper protections you may have on that data as well. And this all comes with reports that can be output to help support them better understanding where the issues and problems are and how you can help them in remediating those issues. I'm going to give you, just before we do this, a very brief product demonstration of our solution and help you understand how this can be leveraged from a partner standpoint under the auspices of what we provide is the platform called PartnerShield. And under PartnerShield is where you can launch and initiate any of the offerings or services that you may be providing to your customers. So I'm going to just pause briefly and go to the PartnerShield platform. And in this particular demonstration, I'm coming in under the auspices of an organization called Acme RPO Services. So I am an RPO that's providing a variety of different services to different customers. And in this case, I'm taking a look at I'm in a customer demo site and looking at this one particular customer. But before I start there, I just wanted to show you under the auspices of PartnerShield how easy it is to set up services. And keep in mind, with the PartnerShield platform provided by us, it's a white labeled solution. So it would be white labeled, or labeled under the auspices of your company name and logos and the like. And as you turn on customers, you could also do the same for them. So you can kind of customize their views into their own environments. So when they come in and they're looking, they're seeing things under the auspices of the names of their company as well. But it's as simple as going and doing things like, you can see where I'm coming into my tool section and saying, I want to manage my customers. So under the auspices of this Acme, you can see they're managing 5 different customers in their environment. You can see who those customers are, when they got turned on, and then what the modules are that they have subscribed to. So in the case of this, for instance, let's say I was working with this Semper company. They're currently using my HackShield product for identifying CUI data. And now they've come to me after I've been doing servicing for them, and they've said, you know what, we'd like you to help us do our compliance audits around CMMC. It's as simple as just picking that client, going in to edit that customer, and then you can see in the setup process, if I go to my modules description, over here is where I have the different services or products that I can turn on for that particular client. So if they now wanted me to do, let's say, CMMC level 2 related audits, I just click here and I can turn that on and enable that for them. Anytime you do that with any customer, you will also have different ways in which you can initially activate their use, meaning you can provide a demo account for them. You can provide a trial account where they're able to trial it for a certain period of time. And then after that, utilize that as a means to support their need for ongoing services with you. And when that does take place, you just activate them and turn them on into an active client. And that goes across any of the different product offerings that you would have underneath the auspices of your particular organization. You can see I can enable internal scanning and perimeter and external scanning tools. All of this is done simply by the click of a button to activate those services for them. I'm just going to cancel out of here and go back. And then also note that even activating a new client is the same way. So if you were going to turn on a new customer, you would walk through that same process. You would upload information around that customer to customize. You give them a default admin, and then the same, you would come in and activate the modules or services that you want to activate for that particular client. So really simple oversight and management for all of the clients and all the services you may be providing to those clients in this environment. So I'm going to touch just briefly on a couple of the different service offerings that we have underneath the auspices. So I've gone back to this customer demo account, and you can see everything comes in what we call kind of a dashboard view for you. So in this particular dashboard under this particular customer, you were seeing a couple of different things that have been activated for them. And it's kind of color coded to help you understand, things that don't necessarily need to have particular actions taken on them. And some of those that may need to have, that in red means that we've got issues that need to get addressed. And so it starts up here at the top because I've activated different compliance frameworks for them. It's showing me the controls related to those frameworks. And as I get into this, I'll explain a little bit about those numbers. Our products all come with also a set amount of policies that are related to those controls, security policies related to those. And those policies you can take as is. They of course become customized for that client, but you can modify those policies. You can add your own if you've already built ones around that, or you can update them. And I'll show you that briefly in here as well. And then of course, if I'm collaborating with anybody, if I have requests for certain things to be done, this is what would show to me for that. And then down below here and I'll come back to this after we go through some of the compliance items. I've also activated security scanning for this client. So in this particular dashboard, it's showing me all the hosts that are being managed and being scanned in that client's environment, the services or software that are sitting on those hosts, and then the vulnerabilities associated with those. And as I mentioned, we actually even added more to this by segmenting this even down into the CISO known exploits as well. So we can identify those and tell them where the problems are and then how to go about fixing them. So if I click into these controls, for this particular client, we've activated not only CMMC level 2 and the NIST 800-171, but we also they're a healthcare client, so we're also doing HIPAA security and privacy for them. I will note with all of our compliance frameworks, there are about 31, I believe, in the full solution. We have done crosswalking and mapping to all these different frameworks. So we have ISO, HIPAA, NIST, all of those as a base have mapped compliance to other controls. So the big thing there is that you're only having to do things once and you can crosswalk for other purposes. So you don't necessarily have to go into each one by one to do all. If there are controls that crosswalk, you only need to answer them once and then you can map them to the others. And because of the changes that took place with CMMC, they are now a one-to-one matching. So anytime you're doing anything related to CMMC or NIST, you really only have to do the process once and then you can map those or synchronize those to the different controls so that you're meeting not only the current requirements, but the future requirements that are coming down the pike for that. And this gives you an opportunity to, again, to filter information you may want to look at. So if I just wanted to look at, let's say, CMMC version 2, level 2, now it's just taking me to those 110 CMMC v2 controls. Similarly, if I just wanted to look at HIPAA and not CMMC, then it would just take me to the HIPAA related controls. So a lot of flexibility in how you filter your information to go about answering, the different questions you may need to go in and answer. And then when it does come to working with that, it's as simple as clicking in to that particular question. And we've gotten tons of great feedback in terms of helping bring a lot more clarity to this process with how we've organized this. So when we open this up, it not only gives you the control and what the proper answers are to those control, we provide a lot of guided information on how to work with that and understand how to best meet the requirements to provide a compliant answer. And so they include things like guidance and best practices, implementation guidance. This comes from NIST directly. If I were to click into here, it would take me to that particular guidance. I'm just going to click out because it takes a minute for it to open. The policies and procedures related, any supplemental guidance that might be part of this. Again, all of this can be used to help you guide you and your customer in answering the questions and making sure that you're in compliance. Things like supporting evidence and even questionnaires that could be asked to help justify what you may need to help properly answer this question. And at any given point in time, you can also add comments. In the comments section, you can add as many, as you like. And because this is a continuous monitoring tool, anytime there's responses, it will update those responses and catalog all the response history to those as well. And then lastly, of course, they will always want to, make sure that you have evidence to support your answer to a particular question. So here again, you can go ahead and upload evidence to support that as well, give you kind of a full comprehensive oversight and view to meet those requirements. And that's how it works for, working and managing any of those types of questions. There's, as I mentioned, workflow that's built into this. So let's say I wanted to just take things like my access controls related to CMMC, and I'm going to have a different individual actually answer those questions for me. It's as simple as just taking actions and saying, hey, I want to assign this to another owner for them to manage and respond to. I can even request responses for people that are outside my purview. So I could say that, for instance, I would like a particular person to answer these questions. I can give them a target completion date. And when I go ahead and I assign this, what it will do is it will send out a secure web form that would allow them to just go in and answer those questions. And once they have done that, you can see, as we were showing on the dashboard, you would have areas in your requests, areas to see where things were, what's in progress, what's past due, and then helping be able to respond to those as well. Before I get into reports in this, I just wanted to highlight as well, as we mentioned, that we bring as part of this defined policies as well that can be used for that are mapped to the controls. So you can see in here, if I've started a process, it will show me that particular policy. What are the controls that are related to that particular policy? And if I've begun to answer questions, it will also show me what may be in compliance and not in compliance. So I can very easily just click into those and actually attack those particular questions as well, particularly those we know that may be unanswered or non-compliant. If I were to open up this document, you'll see that it comes where it's been kind of customized to that particular client's needs. It gives them a full description of that policy. You have the ability, for instance, if you already have your own, to go ahead and upload your own into here or to edit these. And of course, if you do edit, it will track all the changes that have taken place. You can even pull these out and download these and work with them offline and upload them back into the system as well. But a couple of things to note, and a real important component of this, as we mentioned, is the mapping to the different controls that affect that particular policy. So you can see if I were to click in here, it's showing me all the different controls that are relevant to this particular policy. And this comes from a packaging perspective. We package our compliance frameworks along with the policies that relate to them as well. So before I go into a little bit around the security related items, I just want to show you some of the types of reports that can be generated out of here. So I'm going to go into the compliance reporting tools, and you can see I have different categories of reports that can be generated. We have reports on compliance, where I could go ahead and pick that up and say, what is the framework that I want to be looking at, identify that, run that report, and it would give me a report on compliance that could be shared with that customer to say, look, on our initial assessment, you have a lot of areas that need to be addressed. And here's where they are, and here's where you were at one time, and here's how things are trending over time as well. Because it is a continuous monitoring tool, you will always have trends that you can run and show in terms of improvements on those as well. We've also already configured these for the current requirements for anything related to DoD reporting. Those include things like a plan of action and milestone report that gets generated off of the compliance audit that's been done for you to set timeframes as to when things will get fixed and who will be responsible for those. We help, I would say, semi-automate the system security plan. There are some things outside of what we do that need to go into that plan, but anything related to compliance related items that are part of that would be generated in the system security plan as well. And of course, we also run the current need requirements for doing your NIST report on 800-171 requirements. We will run those reports based upon the NIST scoring guidelines, and you can turn that out and generate that for your customer. So in the case of this particular customer, the highest level score you can get on an 800-171 assessment is 110, and that's what they want you to be driving towards. This will output based upon that criteria where you are today, based upon how you have answered the particular question. So in this case, this customer has some work to do to begin to improve or update that overall aggregate compliance score. But all this gets, automated in a manner that then would allow you to submit, or your customer to submit that data to the SPRS. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard briefly and also show you the Security Manager product. So again, another way to kind of look at this dashboard, as we said, you can just kind of segment on what you might want to look at within here. So how many assets do I currently have being scanned? The services that are being run on them, the vulnerabilities that might be associated with those. And at any given point in time, I can click into these tiles and again, use that filtering criteria. Maybe I just want to go down and see, for instance, what are my most critical issues that I have with this particular environment. Sorry, I'm just moving down. So I want to take a look at the severities. In this case, we have 71 that are considered critical severities. And if I were to filter that, it's going to show me where they are, what IPs those are associated with, what are the number of vulnerabilities that reside on that. And if I were to click into any one of these, then it will give me kind of a timeline, because again, this is a regularly running vulnerability scan. It will show me the diffs and the changes that have taken place based upon the timing of the scans that I've run on that environment. What's nice with this is, beyond showing you those issues, it will tell me, for instance, where those vulnerabilities are, what the installed applications are that are on there, and then it will give me the vulnerabilities. More importantly, it will also tell me what the remediations need to be done to take care of those. And I can do that again on a one-by-one basis. Of course, these will generate reports for you that can be presented to the clients to help them understand what actions they need to be taking to get them into a more compliant framework. And again, that generates different types of reports that you can run off these to help them understand the issues they have in that environment, whether they are recommended remediations for vulnerable assets, what are the top remediations that need to be done. Within here, again, we have close to, I think, 30 different types of reports that can be run on this data. Is an example of an excellent, tool to take back to a particular customer. I'm running, in this case, what we would call a top remediation report. So I'm asking Sage, show me the top 20 remediations suggestions and what impact that would have on my clients or my overall risk posture. And this generates very quickly a remediation report that will tell you what are the hosts by the severities, the vulnerabilities by severities on there, and then kind of what if I were to apply the remediations, 20 remediations, it would impact 161 hosts. It would remediate 92.4% of the vulnerabilities, and it would improve my risk profile by this much. And you can take this, we provide with this for the service providers as well, time estimates on what the timing is to do those remediations. And that can then, of course, be utilized to be shared with independently with your client to say, this is how much time we're going to need in the justification for the services you may be delivering to help in that remediation process. or the advice you may be giving to someone else who is going to be doing that remediation as well. So lots of different useful, valuable, super efficient tools to do this. And just briefly, the way in which our security solution works, we have web-enabled it on top of one of the most well-recognized scanning utilities that comes from a company called Rapid7. And what we've done is taken the need out of a Rapid7 to install it in an environment, to put hardware in someone's environment. You can basically download a scanner, and that scanner just needs to sit on one Windows machine. And with that, then it will reach out, it will do an initial, what I would call discovery of all the assets in that environment, so you can see how many are within there. And then off of that, you can run different types of timing of scans that you may want to run on that particular network. And you can break it out into different components, all depending on how you want, or your client wants to manage that, and schedule and run those at any given point in time. And anytime they're run, you will get reports back on any new vulnerabilities that have come up and new remediations that need to take place. Lastly, I'm going to just touch on a couple of more tools before we end the session and take questions. As I mentioned, we also have the product called HackShield, and this is just showing me we've launched this endpoint solution, and it's gone out and identified all the devices in the environment, and then it's telling me where different pieces of critical data are lying. Are they in Dropbox? Are they in Microsoft OneDrive? Are they sitting, in different types of folders? So you can actually identify where that critical data lies, and then use that to take action. So in this demo, we're looking at a lot of different information. If I just wanted to segment this to CUI, you can see how I can break that down, and it will show me anything that's related to CMMC, CUI, or FCI data. So one is it can do a discovery to help you understand where that data sits. And then the second part of this is actually doing exfiltration. You can see where that data has been moving. And then we have utilities and things that can be run behind the scene to set what I would call rules on how that data can move. So you may want to have people, obviously some people have to have access to that data to carry out certain things you may be doing in a contract, but we want to make sure that that data is not moving to other places it should not go to. So you can set things like encryption rules and the likes on that so if someone were actually trying to push that data out to somewhere it isn't supposed to be, it will encrypt and lock that data. So even if they did try to send it out, the person on the other end trying to open it would not be able to open and get access to it. So again, putting even further protections in helping meet requirements like HIPAA for PHI protection, and CUI for meeting the CMMC requirements as well. And then lastly, I'm just going to touch very briefly on one other solution that's in the offerings for doing things like 889B monitoring. So how we've constructed this is basically we take all of that information from that particular client. We look at their ecosystem, the ecosystem of that client, and then we match that up to the banned vendor list. And so in doing so, it allows me, first of all, to look at what those data sources are. So we've amalgamated all of the banned vendors and their subsidiaries. That's the key point. There's 6 primary, and then underneath them, there's now probably close to 230, 240 different subsidiaries. So we can match that and then run that against a client's vendor database to give them matches. And we've taken it one step further by enabling certain utilities in that security scanning discovery tool, where we can actually leverage that to identify all the IPs in a particular company's network and allow you to do a direct match against those as well. So it provides a full continuous monitoring oversight process for those. Again, so very simple and easy to use, and another nice service that can be run because anyone that's dealing with any type of a federal contract or a government contract is supposed to be checking against this 889B vendor list. And you'll note that there's a lot of new agreements that are coming out that are asking for attestments that you are not working with any of that particular type of technology. So we're going to pause here. We're getting close to the end of the session. Please go to the Q&A to answer any, or to offer any questions that you may have. Let me just get back to my presentation here briefly. And note that, by you working with us, we can really help you take on a lot more clients, leading to obviously more revenue at lower costs, and being able to manage a larger distribution of clients within your network as well. And we've had a number of our folks that have joined these sessions that have wanted to reach out to us to be able to test and test out any one of these solutions. I'm going to open up a brief poll for those that have joined us here today. If you have an interest in leveraging our platform, please go ahead and you should see a poll that was launched where you can go in and answer if you have any interest in any one of these particular solutions. And for those of you that do, we will make that offering free to you for a period of time. And I see folks are going in and indicating interest in those solutions, which is great. We will make note to reach out to you to get you set up on this. But why don't we go ahead while we're doing that? I'll leave the poll open. And if you go to the Q&A section in here, you will be able to go ahead and ask any questions that you have of us for this presentation. And again, as I mentioned, we want to thank you all for joining on a holiday today. And Chandi, do we have any questions? Have you seen any that have come through?
Nothing yet, Tom.
Okay, and maybe while Chandi is our CTO, he is the mastermind behind the platform. Can you just expand a little bit more on how the scanning utility works and how you deploy it for a customer?
Okay, so most of the vulnerability scanners that are in the market are typically meant to be used by security professionals. So there are a lot of expertise required to actually use them. What we have done is taken one such product, which is like the best in the market, and made it easy to use by cloud enabling it. So we actually have a cloud-based installation of that. And what we have facilitated is installation of a small piece of code in any customer environment. And with that, the rest of the process actually gets automated. And you have browser-based interface to basically schedule scans, recurring scans on a customer environment. And the process of scanning is totally automated. And once the scan is done, the results are analyzed by the system and presented in a very easy to understand dashboard like Tom showed. And we have extensive reporting on top of it, which can be automated as well to basically bring out executive perspectives or somebody who wants to fix a problem, remediations perspective. So a variety of enhancements are made to make it very easy for any folks to use vulnerability management.
Great. Thanks, Chandi. And I know we're getting close to the end of the session. I do see a question that was asked about how does this work with providers? So from a business perspective, so we provide the platform to the organizations that we work with, white label. Obviously, we won't go through the process of helping get you set up, and we provide you a lot of tools that can help in your marketing efforts to the companies you may be servicing. But we also provide those products at discounted rates to our service providers. So we provide what we would call suggested discounts off of our product offering, and they're all subscription based. They do vary, and I can provide to those of you who have interest what those different rates look like depending upon the services that you're activating. But they then, will either bundle those in with their own services, which most do. So it's something that is, the transparency is yours with your customer in terms of how you want to go about presenting and marketing and paying for those services. It's a pass through through us. So we're not, contracting directly with those clients. We go through our partners, and our partners set the prices in terms of how they want to provide those services to them. So it's been, super efficient and super helpful, most of all for meeting the demands that you have. And then obviously it's been quite profitable as well for those clients. And I see we have a number of you that have expressed interest in the security tools, the hack tools, and the compliance tools. You will be receiving after this presentation this content of the presentation, as well as the recording of this presentation. And then we'll also be asking you, for those of you who have raised your hand, for some dates and times at work to get in contact with you to set up a time to get your trial activated for you as well. So please be on the lookout for that, and provide, if you recall, some times it would work. If not, again, one of us will reach out to you briefly to get that done. And it looks like everyone that's in attendance here is asked to trial one or multi tools, which is great. And we'll look forward to the opportunity to be able to hopefully work with you. So with that said, we're right now up at the end of our hour. I want to thank you all for attending today, and we'll look forward to follow up with you shortly hereafter. And again, thank you for attending on a holiday. Greatly appreciate it. All the best.